Hello viewers. Now before we start this video, there is something that I must let you all know about. It's something that I've thought long and hard about, but now it's time to share it with you all. Guys, I've officially converted to Gen 1ism. That's right, I am a Gen 1er. Now some of you might be thinking that I'm crazy. Why would someone want to be known as a Gen 1er, when for the most part, Gen 1ers are looked down upon in the Pokemon community? But you see, being a Gen 1er is what being a true Pokemon fan is all about. Us Gen 1ers, we actually care for the Pokemon franchise, unlike people who are just accepting everything that Game Freak throws at us. In fact, us Gen 1ers care so much that we want to help Pokemon fans like you. We want to show you what being a true Pokemon fan is all about. Most people think that all a Gen 1er is someone who only likes the first generation of Pokemon, but no. I mean, yes, that's basically what a Gen 1er is, but there's so much more to it. So, do you wish to follow in my footsteps, to becoming as loyal as a Pokemon fan can be, to become a Gen 1er? Of course you do. However, one cannot simply become a Gen 1er. Now you see, there are certain rules that must be followed. This is exactly why I'm making this video today. So ladies and gentlemen, and future Gen 1ers, may I present the 10 rules of being a Pokemon Gen 1er. Let us begin. Rule number 1. The first generation of Pokemon had the best Pokemon. In order to become a Gen 1er, your opinion on the Pokemon of each generation must be correct. We can't simply have people whose favourite generation of Pokemon is something like Generation 6. Oh no. Which is why the Indigo Council has created the Gen 1er's Guide to each Pokemon generation. Your opinion of the Pokemon of each generation must go along the lines of Generation 1, the best generation of Pokemon by far. Perfect designs, perfect sprites, perfect everything. Honestly, they should have just left it at 1, because the Pokemon are only going to get worse from here. Generation 2. Decent. Not as good as Generation 1, but not too bad. This batch of Pokemon did have some notable ones, like Togepi, Donphan, and Lugia, but they could have put a bit more effort into some of their designs. Take Blissey for example. This is Chansey's evolution. It's just a bigger, fatter version of Chansey. Pretty boring and unoriginal if you think about it. Let's take a look at a Generation 1 evolution line for example. Let's say, Grimer. Now, Grimer was introduced in any other generation. It would most likely have a lazy evolution design, probably looking like a slightly bigger, uglier pile of sludge. But instead, Game Freak went the smarter route. They made Grimer's evolution much more detailed, interesting, and an overall improvement. That is why Rhydon is such a good evolution to an already well-designed Pokemon, being Rhyhorn. If only they could keep up these good evolutions. Still, the Pokemon of Generation 2, not at the level of Generation 1, but far from the worst. Generation 3. Bad. This was a generation where they started to look like they were running out of ideas. Gen 3 Pokemon for the most part were either lazy, racist, or boring. It's a shame because none of the Generation 1 Pokemon were lazy, racist, or boring. They were all pretty much perfect. So it breaks my heart to see that Game Freak couldn't keep up their awesome and original designs for more than 2 generations. Generation 4. Somewhere in the middle of Generation 2 and 3. Not as good as Generation 2, but not as bad as Generation 3. I mean, this generation had some pretty cool designs, I guess. But the worst part is when they tried to give evolutions to original classics, like Lickitung, Tangela, and worst of all, Rhydon. My god, what did they do to Rhydon? If this generation just stuck to original Pokemon, it would have been fine. Okay, maybe not fine. Passable, I guess. But luckily there was one great Pokemon to come out of this generation. Generation 5. We don't talk about this generation. Generation 6. Bad, but at least there's not a lot of them. This gen tried to make some Pokemon that were cool, but there were a fair share of downright terrible ones, like Goomy. You're trying to tell me that Charizard isn't a dragon, but this is. Okay, they weren't even trying with this one. It's just a small chubby Raichu. That's not even a Pokemon, that's just a f***ing Keyring. But as bad as this generation is, like I said, there was only like, what, 70 new ones? So it definitely could have been worse. Generation 7. Well, as of now the games haven't come out yet, but this generation is looking pretty terrible, considering that these abominations are now Pokemon. With Generation 4, they were just making new evolutions to Pokemon, not completely ruining them. So in short, Generation 1 is great. And that's all you need to know. Rule number 2. There is no such thing as the Fairy type. Everyone knows the Pokemon types. You've got your Grass, your Fire, your Water, the list goes on. Psychic, as we all know, is the best type. So, in Generation 2, they tried to balance out the game a bit by introducing the Dark and Steel types. Luckily they didn't introduce new types every generation, because that would have just been terrible. Plus the 17 types that we have were perfectly fine. It was okay to introduce a couple of new types, and I guess give some old Pokemon these new types, as long as they would make sense. Which for the most part they did, and then for a while they stopped making new types, which was good. If only they stopped making Pokemon as well. So Generation 6 comes around and I'm being told that there's this brand new type. Well, okay. I mean, if it's just one type, I guess it can't be that bad. Let's see, what is it? Light type, sound type, cosmic type? Okay, now that sounds pretty cool.
A new type of Pokemon. Fairy
What the fuck is this?
type.
They actually made a type based on fairies.
Sylveon is just one.
You know, they should have just called this the pink type. That's all it is. It's just pink. Okay, even though I think this is stupid, whatever. What types is this new fairy type strong against then? I don't know, dark maybe, since this is supposed to be our light type. Maybe...
Which is super effective against dragon type Pokemon.
So you're saying that the type that is supposed to put dragons in their place, the type that they decided on to completely counter dragons, is fairy type.
Adding a new twist to your battle strategy.
Oh, shut the fuck up. You honestly want me to believe that a fairy would be a Okay, if f***ing Tinkerbell picked a fight with, I don't know, Smaug, she's not going to be immune to anything that Smaug throws at her. So it has been agreed upon that all Gen 1ers should just completely ignore this type's existence. And by doing so, you'll be one step closer to becoming a Gen 1er. Rule number 3. You only have a rival in Generation 1. And maybe 2. Silverheal was kind of cool. What does this rule mean, you may be thinking? Well, let me explain. Once upon a time, your rival used to be awesome and challenging like this. Now your rival is a fat lazy fuck like this. Like, what the hell happened? Why are all these new rivals so bad? Your so-called rival has gone from a smug little shithead who constantly looks down upon you, challenging and testing your skills every now and then, and even going on to become the new Pokemon champion, to a f***ing brony. You can't even name your rivals anymore, and that was one of the best things about your rival. So basically, this is a rival, this is a disgrace. Rule number 4. You may only trade Pokemon using a link cable. You may think that trading wirelessly is perfectly fine for your Pokemon. You are wrong. A link cable ensures that any Pokemon traded will be left unharmed, and is overall the safest way of trading your Pokemon, as they cross a safe line from one game to the other. So you might be thinking how a Pokemon will get from one game to another without the safety of a link cable. Well, the truth is, they don't. What people don't actually know is that Pokemon traded wirelessly aren't magically transferred from one game to the other game totally unharmed. Instead, the Pokemon enters cyberspace, where it is then destroyed and turned into digital data. This data is then taken and then recreated into an exact copy for the other console. That's right, the Charizard that you traded from your copy of Pokemon X to Omega Ruby is dead. The Charizard you have now is nothing more than a fake. Here at the Indigo Council, murdering Pokemon is seen as a great offense, and will not be tolerated. Unless that Pokemon's Gen 5 and onwards, feel free to kill any of those Digimon wannabes. Rule number 5. You may only evolve your Eevee with a Water Stone, a Thunderstone, or a Firestone. It should be obvious at this point which evolution you should and shouldn't evolve your Eevee into, but just in case, I'm now going to hand over to an Eevee expert to explain this rule in further detail.
Greetings, people! I am Professor Mandels of the Indigo Council. As a self-proclaimed Eevee expert and newly converted Gen 1er, it is my duty to inform you why it is wrong to evolve your Eevee without one of these 3 evolution stones. Firstly, we're going to go over exactly what makes an Eeveelution that is deemed worthy of evolution, and there are 3 main points. Number 1, they're from Gen 1. Number 2, they evolve with an evolution stone. And number 3, they don't look like shit. And as you can see, only 3 Eeveelutions fit this category. So no, you may not evolve your Eevee into an Espeon or Umbreon. Oh, and if you were wondering why there was an Umbreon and Espeon plush on the shelf, they're not mine. I was filming at a friend's house. Oh, and those Pokemon on the left, they're his as well. Did I say he was my friend? He's not my friend. I can't be friends with someone who owns plushes of non-Gen 1 Pokemon. Anyway, they may not be as bad as some of the later Eeveelutions, but they're not Gen 1. But what about Glaceon and Leafeon, I hear you say? Are you kidding me? Compared to the first 3 Eeveelutions, they suck. Not only that, but their evolution methods are terrible. All Eevees should evolve with a stone. And these Eeveelutions evolve with A rock? So bottom line, these 4 Pokemon are a disgrace to the Evolution line. But I'm happy to say that Game Freak thankfully stopped it there and we didn't get another terrible evolution with some stupid evolution method.
What about Sylveon?
What?
Sylveon! You forgot Sylveon! You forgot the fairy type!
What?
There's a
fairy
fairy
type? What's a
evolution.
fairy type? Is that some kind of Digimon?
Rule number 6. You must instantly hate all the Pokemon based on inanimate objects. Unless they're from Gen 1. Inanimate object Pokemon are the worst type of Pokemon. They're proof of why Game Freak is running out of ideas. Let me show you some. Here we have a f***ing sandcastle. Here we have what I assume is a Digimon. I don't know. Here we have a... Is that a f***ing ice cream? Here we have a Pokemon who was designed by Willy Wonka. You know, these inanimate object Pokemon can be easily described with this funny meme that I found. The artists basically blindfold themselves, they draw something, then they determine their name by smashing a keyboard. Luckily though, I haven't seen a Pokemon creation as bad as this one. I mean, a Pokemon literally based on garbage would just probably be the worst thing that Game Freak could ever... Oh my god, it's real. It's f***ing real. This is why we don't talk about the 5th generation, because it's literally full of trash. Rule number 7. Misty is the only female companion that matters. Not only have the Pokemon become worse over the years, but so has the anime. But the main thing that we're going to be focusing on the anime today is the female companions that have travelled with Ash throughout his journey. Now when you become a Gen 1er, you must choose to only acknowledge the existence of one female companion. That's because only one female companion was good, and the others were terrible. If it wasn't already obvious, Misty is the only good companion. So much so that the anime pretty much ended in our eyes when she left. As for the other companions, well, I guess it wouldn't hurt to acknowledge their existence for a few seconds, just to look over them. First off, May. Would have been better if she didn't have that annoying little shit of a brother. Dawn. Just a more annoying version of May. Iris. The worst female companion. Because, she, Why exactly is she the worst female companion again?
Is it because I'm black?
Oh yeah, it's because anything Gen 5 is automatically deemed terrible, so that's why. Serena. I don't know, I stopped watching the anime around when the 5th generation came out. She's not Misty, so she's automatically not as good. Unless they bring back Misty and Brock. And the old animation, the anime is no more. Rule number 8. You're not allowed to run anywhere. The act of running has been looked down upon for a long time now. So much to the point where it's been decided that running should be forbidden in any Pokemon game. And real life. If you wish to move at a pace faster than walking, you must use a bicycle, but only outside. We have no time to use bicycles inside. And we have no time for running. Anywhere. Skates? What's the point? They're just a less efficient way of cycling. If you have the choice between using a bicycle or roller skates, why on earth would you pick the option that's slower? Riding a Pokemon? What is this animal cruelty? The only time you should be allowed to mount a Pokemon is for surfing and flying. And only if you have the correct amount of gym badges to do so. Bottom line, running should be a crime. Get some real exercise and use a bicycle. Rule number 9. You may not worship false gods. It saddens me to hear that people have been calling a Pokemon known as Arceus the Pokemon god that created the Pokemon world. This is an absolute travesty. People should not be calling this abomination God. This is not our Pokemon god. Our real Lord and Savior is, of course, the almighty Lord Helix. He was there when we needed him most. He was the light to guide us through the region of Kanto, and was even resurrected on the 11th day. He then evolved into his higher form, and was with us when we were crowned victorious. Lord Helix is our one true Lord and Savior. But this llama wannabe is nothing more than a fraud, and is despised by all Gen 1ers for his lies and deception. Do not fall for fake idols, people. Remember, real leaders look like this, not this. And finally, rule number 10. You may not be friends with anyone who is not also a Gen 1er. Out there in the world, believe it or not, there are people who don't believe Generation 1 is the best generation. There are people who don't even evolve their Eevee with a Water, Thunder or Firestone. There are people who like a Alolan Dugtrio. This is not acceptable. In order to get away from this toxicity, the best thing you can do is banish these types of people from your life. It may be difficult to do so, but if you are a true Pokemon fan, then you will find the strength. Just like I did. That's right, I myself had to remove someone who I once called a friend from my life after choosing my Gen 1 lifestyle. I still remember exactly how it happened.
Hey Alex, sorry I'm late.
Where have you been?
It was cold outside and...
Why don't you use your bicycle?
I don't have a bicycle.
What do you mean you don't have a bicycle?
I needed to get this...
What is that? What is that? Pokemon Black 2... This isn't Generation 1.
This is the new generation.
What the hell is that?
It's a new Pokemon, it's a fusion.
Fusion? Is this freaking Yu-Gi-Oh? This isn't Pokemon anymore.
Dude, what the hell? I had to run to the store to get this.
You had to what?
I had to run.
Run? You're not allowed to run. You're not my friend anymore. And that was unfortunately the last day we ever spoke. So as long as they continue making more and more Pokemon, the worse the franchise will become. In fact, I hear that new games are about to come out. What are they called again? Pokemon Sun and Moon? Did they just run out of colours? What next? They're going to start naming Pokemon games after planets? How about the next Pokemon games be Pokemon Mars and Jupiter? Well, you can bet I won't be getting any of these games. And I don't even have to look at them to know how they're going to turn... Oh, those graphics actually look kind of cool. As I was saying, these games aren't even Pokemon anymore. They've got rid of gyms. I bet they're replacing them with something awful like... Trials. Oh, you mean like the Orange Islands? No, I've always wanted a Pokemon game based off the Orange Islands. No, these games are still not Gen 1. Therefore, they automatically Wait. Holy crap, that Pokemon actually looks really cool. No, I will not give in to temptation. As a fully recognized Gen 1er, I will resist any temptation and accept the fact that the Pokemon franchise as we know it has died. There is absolutely nothing that can make me like these new games. Oh my god, is that a Fire Cat? Holy crap, I want that Fire Cat. Crap, right, I need to get this new game, but how much... Oh, hi, so yeah, I was showing you how to be a Gen 1, right? And those are the 10 rules of being a Gen 1er. So, if you wish to try being a Gen 1er out yourself, just follow those simple steps. I tried it out for a bit, but I guess being a Gen 1er just doesn't suit me. Anyway, huge thanks to Almighty Mandles for his cameo. His channel is linked below, so I suggest you check it out if you haven't. Not only that, but if you enjoyed this Gen 1er video, then please be sure to check out my friend Ragnarop's channel, where he's also done a Gen 1er video. I guaranteed if you like this one, you'll enjoy his. And if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more Pokemon videos in the future. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. Go!
No, fuck it.